Welcome to another episode of Pop of the Morning. I am your co-host Phil, and with me as always is...
your co-host Tom. And This is the show. We'd like to welcome you to the show where we talk about the pop culture that is all around us, that we're inhaling as it explodes in the sky overhead like some kind of malevolent 4th of July fireworks display raining down, filling your lungs, warming the planet. It's the kind of stuff that works into the deepest cracks, the deepest little crevice, the aeoli of your lung. I think that's the word. Deep in there, right? And you know, you just can't escape it, right? It's inside of you. And this week on the show, right, as we examine this pop culture, the pop culture that's deep inside of us, we're looking at the movie Air Force One. This was a big movie back in 1997 starring Harrison Ford, Glenn Close, Gary Oldman, William H. Macy is in there. Mm-hmm. And it's a movie that...
It's a packed house in there.
It's a stacked deck. A full flight, you might say. And you know, I gotta say, I do not have a personal relationship with this movie. I don't think you do either. Do you, Phil? Like, is this a movie you watched as a kid? Is this a movie you watch regularly when it plays on the USA Network?
I think
Spike TV, perhaps?
I think it's a movie that my parents enjoyed. When I was watching this, my mom was like, "This is a good movie." She's like, and I was like, "I'm not enjoying this," and Tom was not enjoying this. Spoiler alert! And she goes, "I don't know what's wrong with you guys. It's a good movie." So I remember my parents, I think, had a VHS copy of it. It was either that or what's the other one? It's a remake. Harrison Ford with the one-armed man.
Fugitive.
Yeah, it was either that or The Fugitive. I can't remember. One of them had Harrison. Maybe they had both of them, but Harrison Ford was definitely on.
He was in both of those movies.
Of VHS at some point in this house.
Harrison Ford was, you know, honestly,
man.
I mean, I love Harrison.
Yeah, he's
Ford.
cool.
It's hard to deny the charisma of Harrison Ford. He's Han Solo himself.
He was,
I can't remember the name of his character in American Graffiti, but he was in that too. Indiana Jones. He did a lot of work with George Lucas. But here he is decidedly outside of George Lucas's galaxy far, far away. He is playing President. He's playing President
retired
Murphy. President James Marshall,
who's pretty much just a retired.
He's
just a retired Han Solo, from what I understand of the Star Wars movie.
Yeah. He is. If I can quote from the Wikipedia summary of his character, he is the popular President of the United States and a family man who loves his wife, Grace, and daughter, Alice. Marshall is also a decorated helicopter rescue pilot, Vietnam veteran, and Medal of Honor recipient who speaks reasonably fluent Russian. That's his character profile, and I would say that's about the depth of his character. You know, look, like I think when I was watching this movie, I was about maybe I tried really hard to give this movie. I tried really hard to, as I do with all the movies that we watch for this show, to receive it with an open mind and an open heart, and really, you know, like I said in the intro, to really breathe it in and try to take the movie for what it is, on what it's trying to achieve, on its own merits. But I believe about 2/3 of the way through the movie, I texted you and I said, this movie is a real chore.
Yeah.
And
that's how I felt.
You know,
this thing was 2 hours long.
This is a movie it's right. It's long. It's longer than Harold and Maude. It's longer than Rushmore. It's longer than these arty films that we've been watching. It is the definition of like summer excess, but without the fun. There's a couple of one-liners in here, but like for the most part, this is a very grim, straight-faced, self-serious movie. And when I say it's a chore, you know, we usually choose the movies for this podcast. For anyone wondering, we choose the lineup of movies for this podcast. Often because they mean something to us personally. They're movies that we liked. They're movies that we saw at a young age or at a pivotal moment in our lives that you know, again, we have some personal relationship with. But we try also to mix in a few here and there that are movies that were just big. There were movies that were inescapable, that were everywhere. This is a movie I never saw before this week. And yet, you know, multiple multiple scenes and moments that I've seen, I guess, clips of on the internet or parodied on various whatever, I don't know, television, that I've seen quoted. It's a movie that man, it was one of the most popular action films of the 90s. It earned $315 million worldwide in 1997. It was the year's 5th highest grossing film. It was a freaking phenomenon. If we're being real, it was nominated for a number of Academy Awards, mostly in the sound category, but also film editing.
Had good sound.
It was a big deal. It was a movie that you could not escape in the 90s. And so I guess, just as a disclaimer to anyone tuning in and wondering what is this movie doing, following Harold and Maude and chasing Amy and Rushmore, and this kind of run of arty films, we're trying to look at the movies that shaped us, but also that shaped pop culture, shaped people's consciousness.
I mean,
and I think that this is a movie.
This was I mean, we picked this out of a article. I think either you or I had heard about. It was like dad suspense film as a genre.
That's how we got to this.
And we were trying to get out of our comfort zone.
Like dad movies, basically.
Yeah. And so this is a boomer movie. Like I said, I'm pretty sure my parents watched it, and I'm not 100. I don't know if they owned it or not, or if it was The Fugitive. I honestly can't remember if it was The Fugitive or not. But I remember
it could have been either one. But I would.
Yeah, I remember seeing parts of it or all of it in some way in the background of my I was never fully paying attention. It was there in some way. But yeah, we chose it because it was something that influenced. It was popular for boomers, but it influenced them, which influences us, and we're still feeling the results. I think this movie is a perfect time capsule of boomer values, I think. Yeah,
and specifically boomer political values, right? Like
boomer
this movie.
Political.
Let's dig into it.
You could even go into go further and say it's part of the MAGA background. I think Trump used some of the music for his nomination speech over Hillary, and then he also had commented that he admired Harrison Ford's character because he stood up for America. I mean, watching this,
which I don't see in this movie, but
I don't either. But watching this,
seems like he's standing up for himself.
Yeah,
but
watching this, I could imagine Donald Trump or somebody with Donald Trump gear watching this film and just going, "That's our president." And doing Harrison Ford or whatever this president's name is equals Donald Trump or the ideal president. This is what people of America.
Right. This is what people think the president should be. Again, I in another life, I teach middle school civics, and this is what kids think the president should be, an action hero. Mm-hmm. This movie, I love all the threads you're drawing there. There's so much to pull apart, as usual, Phil. You say it so well. This movie is a gigantic bundle of American triumphalism from the 90s. It's post Cold War, very much post Cold War. The movie opens with Harrison Ford, the president of the United States, meeting with his Russian counterpart, being given an award at the Kremlin for just being so awesome, right? It's the new capitalist Russia where everybody is friends, and Harrison Ford stands up and he announces that America has a new foreign policy, that America is going to look for bad guys anywhere in the world, and our military is going to take them out, even if it's not in our political interest, even if it's not in America's specific interest. We are the good guys. We are quote unquote the cops, and we're looking for bad guys. That's the thing he announces as a surprise.
No negotiating with terrorists.
It kills me as a civics teacher. Right, and I'm walking out of. He's walking out of this thing where this dinner where he drops this surprise announcement, and his national security advisor, his press secretary are saying, "Hey, next time you come up with a policy like that, maybe we could talk about it. I thought we did talk about it. Yes, and we told you it was a bad idea. And I said it was a good idea because I'm the president. And that's not how this stuff is done. Not to nitpick the lack of realism. This is a very unrealistic movie on a lot of levels. But I just, that moment too, right? It's post-Cold War, right? So there's no bad guys to fight anymore. There's no big evil empire. The commies are beaten back. And this movie restores the commies to their glory so we can get one more good action movie out of them. But this is also very much like post-Rwanda. The Rwandan genocide happened in 1994. Bill Clinton sort of famously, and Bill Clinton in the world, I shouldn't single out Bill Clinton on this, the world, twiddled their thumbs during the Rwandan genocide. And this is a Hollywood idea of, like, America should be involved everywhere. It's George Bush neocon philosophy in the making as well. This idea that, like, America reserves the right to strike first anywhere if we perceive a threat or even the hint of a threat, right? So we're like happy the Cold War is over. We won and we charmed. We showed them. We flexed our frickin' muscles and we showed the commies who's boss. And look at them. They're bowing down before our president and kissing his feet. But also at the same time, we are yearning for a new war. The Cold War is over and the president is already looking for the next fight. Yeah. Right? And on top of that, it's this, like, American militarism flex, right? This idea that America is a force for good. Full stop. Always right. We're going to act against our own self-interest to do the things that are right. Because, Phil, living in this country, living on this planet, you've learned that America is always good. They're always on the right side of the fight. They never cut corners. They never ally themselves with the wrong guy. No, they never do. Even forget the black morally wrong dark thing. They never even get into the gray area, man. It's always in the light.
And always willing to sacrifice for others. We're generous people. We are in America.
We are. And that notion, right? Like, that is exactly what Harrison Ford as president is articulating, and that's it's a lovely idea. Like, I would that were true. Yeah. But Phil, you and I and anyone who is reading a newspaper halfway critically should recognize immediately, right? Like, first of all, that is not America's historical record. That America all around the world is I'm not saying America is always bad, but America, like any other country, is self-interested, and America has complex motivations for doing any number of things. Some of those things might be good, but also, hey, if we can make a buck off of oil or a military contract along the way, if we can make things safe for American corporations along the way, if we can solidify our sphere of influence against Chinese influence, then hell yes, we are going to get involved, right? America's motivations, like any other countries, are always complex, right? You can't reduce them to good and evil. But I think the dangerous thing here, right, is this piece of propaganda, spinning out in the American decade of the 90s, where America is the world's only superpower. It's dangerous because people take this stuff seriously. Yeah. Right? You mentioned this is like this embryonic MAGA idea, and it is. Like, it is the through line. It is the Cold War propaganda of America as this godly, goodly place standing against the evil, godless commies, right? And this 21st century boomer resurgence, all the people who paid to see this movie in 1997 and bought it on VHS in the fall for Christmas, right? They're the ones who voted Trump, right? Like, that. There's a through line on this.
Yeah, I think when Trump would say "Make America Great Again," and that, people still say that, we would go like, what, you mean like in the 50s? That's when America was great? When are you talking about? Yeah. After seeing this movie, I think I understand what Trump and his administration and that whole propaganda machine was talking. The communication machine was talking about. Propaganda machine. They were talking about a fictionalized idea set in a movie like Air Force One, Make America great again is what I remember America being on my TV screen or on my movie screen.
Man.
Not even
the
reality.
Economy was, the economy was booming.
Yeah.
It felt really good to hear the president say those things. And as far as I know, James Marshall was a real president.
Exactly.
Last I checked, right? He sure looks like one. I sure talks like one.
I talked to a friend of mine about this film, and she goes, it's like I keep imagining that Harrison Ford was a bunch of presidents in different movies, but I think he was only president in this movie. And I go, yeah, I keep thinking the same thing, but I think he was only president in this movie. It's like this.
Well, listen.
This film is like this weird, all-encompassing idea of what America is. It's somehow seeped in without us knowing it. Without us realizing it. It seeped in. Talk about if Harold Maude was like the antidote to like American values and status quo.
Yeah.
This is the unabashed virus that keeps mutating throughout Hollywood.
Right.
I
find that again. It sticks with that getting into your lungs metaphor that I opened this show with. Right. It is, man. Like I think you're right. Like Harrison Ford. Again, I love that guy's swagger, his charisma. It's Indiana Jones, the Nazi fighter, right? As president of the United States, and he's got the one-liners and he's got the rhetoric that so many American presidents use. Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, they all talk like this. Barack Obama, they all talk like this, right? In terms of like these lofty ideals of what America stands for, right? And it's this beautiful idea, right, that America is always going to be good and always going to be on the right side of things. Okay, the American president is the pitch man for America. He's the hype man, and that level, good for him. That's a necessary aspect of leadership for sure, right? Giving that speech that is supposed to inspire people to the higher ideal.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the way that like Harrison Ford, he definitely is like channeling that. He's like all of those guys rolled into one, but a little bit more badass. But again, the danger, right? The way that people just naturally sort of conflate what you see on the screen with what real life is, the fantasy that is being peddled in real life by the American president, with the fantasy that is being acted out on screen, right? You get these presidents in these carefully, in real life, in these carefully choreographed press photo ops, and then you get this movie, which is filling in the fantasy of what happens in between, right? And how satisfying would it be just to have the president able to throw a punch and knock out Saddam Hussein, right? Like Saddam Hussein is mentioned multiple times in this movie. We got to mess with all this diplomacy and all the UN holding us back, all the complexities of reality. Wouldn't it be great if the president could just punch that guy in his freaking ugly face, right? His foreign face. Phil, I'm going to drop in a few of these because I think it speaks to everything we're talking about. I was reading about this movie. Again, there's not a lot to actually read in some senses online, so I did a little bit of original research. I started reading popular reviews by internet users, and here's a really popular one that came up. It has 380 likes, by far the most on the site that I'm looking at regarding this movie. This is a review from a user, a fan of the movie, and this is the entire review of Air Force One.
Okay.
How often do you think Obama turns to someone on Air Force One and says, "Get off my plane," like Harrison Ford? 6, 7 times a day? That's the entire review. And again, like, I don't actually want Obama to say something like that. I find, as much as like Harrison Ford is a charming person, I find this image of the president unsettling and disturbing because it's very half-cocked. Harrison Ford, as the president in this movie, he displays very little regard for how his actions impact anyone else except possibly his family, arguably his family. He gets a lot of people killed by acting very recklessly as this renegade, rogue, rebel, devil-may-care, I-can-do-it-myself action hero, right? I don't actually want an action hero for my president. I want a sober, reflective, thoughtful, humane person, frankly, at the wheel. This is the kind of guy who seems like he's ready to fight his way out of any situation. I hope that Obama never said that. I find it strange. I find it hard to imagine Obama saying anything, frankly, that cringy. That's stupid.
You know,
I hope our president is not walking around quoting movies, but I also understand like how the average American, as you were kind of saying, conflates what you see in the movie with the reality and thinks, wouldn't that be cool? Whatever cool means, wouldn't that be cool?
The thing is, I can see Obama saying something like that because I saw somewhere written down that Bill Clinton saw this movie twice for God knows whatever reason when it came out. But I mean, how many?
It was the '90s, man.
Yeah.
It was his presidential duty.
Yeah. But I can see. I mean, they're human beings. They're gonna quote from whatever position they are in. I mean, we were just talking earlier about how we talk in memes, or like the younger generation talks in memes. We talked in Seinfeld quotes. I'm sure they did the same thing to goof off and let off some steam. But I also don't. Yeah, I wouldn't want them to take this movie seriously in any way, shape, or form. When I started watching this and it was opening up and the soundtrack started coming in, I kept thinking of Hot Shots Part 2, which is just comedy. I was waiting for something to happen because it's
such an over the top, grandiose,
ridiculous,
self-serious, pompous. Soundtrack. I mean, the whole movie is like that, right? These fighter pilots zipping in alongside and saluting the president from across the way. I was waiting for something to take the air out of it
because it was so ridiculous and so full of itself.
That line is the only thing. That line is like the thing. That's the one moment of. I mean, there's all these quips that Harrison Ford gives, but that's the one.
Yeah. But that one cracked me up. That line right there cracked me up. I was laughing, but I also was laughing at the ridiculousness of it because the film was taking itself so seriously, and then he says that, and it's still taking itself so seriously. And I think the
100%.
The humor comes from us watching it now, because there's also so many times where like there's like a time where like Oldman character, I can't remember his actual name, but
Ivan Korshunov.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to call him Gary Oldman because I'm not going to be able to remember that. But Gary Oldman's character was, would be saying things like, it's like you decide who lives or dies from your perch or stuff like that, something like that. Or he goes, you kill 100.
The specific line was,
you kill 100,000 Iraqis for like a nickel on gas or something like that, to lower like the nickel on gas.
Yeah.
And when I was watching that, there's all these lines and I'm just like, yeah, that's true. The U.S. presidency just kind of makes these decisions and doesn't think about, the collateral really or whatever. And then like Gary Oldman's like in your face making these decisions. I'm like, who's really the bad guy? And I think they're both bad guys. It's really, really shit. But I'm trying to like know that that's me being like, leftist and more educated and having a shit ton of resources at my fingertips, and versus like somebody in 97, 98
having the time to read a 10,000 word New York Times article that lays out the nuance of the situation.
Sitting and watching this, and I'm wondering if they're just seeing Gary Oldman's character as just like a straight up liar, just like. He's like lying. Like he's not telling the truth at all.
100%.
Like that's how they see him.
He's like he's a straw man villain, right? He's a cardboard cutout of an old school Soviet bad guy. The movie is so self-serious, right?
Yeah.
So like again, this is like as much a piece of propaganda as
Godzilla.
As reefer madness as I mean, I think Godzilla's got a better sense of humor about itself.
Yeah.
It's as much a piece of propaganda as any kind of like silly 1950s Cold War thing that all of us could laugh at, duck and cover. Right?
Yeah.
We can laugh at the cheesiness of this thing, of just the sheer hokey, creakiness of it. Mm-hmm. And this movie is very much of a piece with that, right? The line you were referring to, right? Ivan Gary Oldman. He's talking to the vice president, and he's threatening to kill the hostages, right? And and the president says, it's not the vice president, it's the president, right? The president says, Harrison Ford, he says, "You don't want to do that. I'm what you came for. Don't forget that." And Gary Oldman responds, "Then I'll kill them. Or just one. You pick. That's what you do at the White House. You play God." And like you say, like that is a reasonable critique of the president's ability to make war, right? That is a reasonable critique, but that's not followed up on, and it's coming out of the mouth of like this guy who's doing this sort of ridiculous Russian accent. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's meant to be dismissed. It's meant to make you, Phil, as a good old American apple pie baseball-loving boy, it's meant to make your blood boil. Get him, Harrison. Get him, Harrison Ford. There's Harrison Ford. Literally, he is that good old guy, right? He's got his baseball glove on there, right? They mentioned the baseball glove a few times. Right?
He left behind.
And they're talking about how the president's gonna. Yeah, and they said and there's the general on the ground who's in the situation with the vice president. He says, "Nobody does this to the United States. The president will get his baseball glove back and play catch with this guy's balls." It is full of these lines that, again, like you're not supposed to laugh at. You're supposed to say "hell yeah" to, right?
Yeah, I mean,
but the line that stuck out at me, right? That you can call this lazy Hollywood writing, or you can call this just signaling to your audience that Gary Oldman is not meant to be taken seriously, right? He has these really murky motivations about somehow he's going to restore Soviet power, right? And you always have to be alert because them commies are just lurking right beneath the surface, and they're ready to just come roaring back. He has this line, right? So this is the one where he's talking to the Vice President Catherine Bennett, played by Glenn Close, and she's on the phone with Gary Oldman, and she says, "What are your intentions?" And Gary Oldman says, "What arrogance to think you could ever understand my intentions." And what lazy Hollywood writing, right? That is what the Hollywood writer says. Like, I don't need to humanize this guy or give him the depth or nuance.
Yeah,
you can dismiss everything he says right now because he's he doesn't need to. He's not going to explain himself. He doesn't need to explain himself. Phil, what do you need to know about this guy? He's a commie. He's a red.
Yeah,
he's bad. Right? He's bad.
Yeah.
Is all you need to know. And who's good? Harrison Ford is good.
Yeah.
Again, despite his multiple, set aside the real world presidents, actions in all these countries. Iraq keeps getting brought up again, which is we can dive down on that. Maybe this isn't the show to do that. Set aside the real world's president's ability to kill a lot of people, and again, hopefully shoulder that burden with some conscience.
Yeah.
He's good. In this movie, he is presented as purely good. Do you notice, Phil? Do you notice? I was wondering if you picked up on this as I watched this movie, and as the situation on this plane grows increasingly dire. All of the Secret Service tried to get him off the plane, get him to safety.
Yeah.
They're trying to save the president's life and de-escalate this situation by removing their prime target. There's lots of cool-headed people in the American government. They're trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, saying that his judgment is compromised because his wife and child were on the plane. To me, that sounds like sound policy, but his loyal vice president refused to sign the order.
Yeah.
Taking office as president. To me, I'm rooting for those people because that is the rational, calm response I'm looking for in a leader, to recognize, hey, it would be hard for any man to be rational and clear-headed in this situation. Maybe his judgment is clouded by the fact that they're going to kill his 14-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Right. But did you notice how every American who gets killed, as the plane is dipping toward the ground, the fuel is running down, and the president still is refusing to leave the plane? Take the wounded man first.
Yeah.
He's so selfless, Phil, isn't he? And then there's the last guy. There's like William H. Macy, right?
Yeah.
And he's arguing with the president. There's only time to get one more man off this plane, and the president ridiculously is saying, "William H. Macy, it should be you." And then that bad Secret Service agent who, for no reason that's ever explained, is collaborating with the Russians, shoots William H. Macy and kills him, and he goes tumbling out of the plane.
Yeah.
And so now the only person left on the plane is the president and this double-crossing Secret Service agent. And so, Phil, I want to just ask you, apart from a Russian terrorist or two, who has the president... What hard decision has the president had to make about anyone's life? Like, the Russians at every turn make the decisions for him. Does the president have any direct blood on his hands at any point? No American lives, no American blood is on his hands at any point in this movie. It's very carefully and unbelievably staged that as the president is agonizing, he doesn't even have to think about it. He's not agonizing. He's sending his daughter away, sending his wife away, sending the wounded man away. He is the American president, selfless, no ulterior motive, not worried about re-election, not worried about anyone except helping Americans. And at the moment where he finally has to make this really hard decision, is it going to be him or me? He's saved, right?
Yeah.
He gets to live. And who made the hard decision about killing an American? It was the double-crossing Secret Service agent who, like a red coward, just wanted to save his own life. He was just trying to get himself off the plane at that point. He believed enough in his mission to betray the American government. But when that plane was about to go down, get me off this plane! Sorry, that was a long walk, but you know what I'm saying?
No,
like,
I understand.
It plays into this propaganda idea that the president, his hands are clean.
Yeah. No,
he's a purely angelic man. His hands are clean. No American soldier ever dies because of the misjudgment of the president. It's the bad guys.
Yeah.
All those guys who died in Vietnam, who did that? It wasn't the American president. It was the commies.
There was one scene that could have been iffy where he was down in the belly of the airplane, and Gary Oldman had the gun to the communication officer's head, ready to shoot her, counts to 10.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford, is about to go up, and then he decides not to. And then there was an argument in the meeting room, like between one of the chiefs, a couple of the chief of staffs, I think, and one guy's like, "Who's down there making these stupid decisions? He could have saved a life." And then William H. Macy, and William H. Macy's like, "It's a guy smart enough to know if he's got one bullet, he needs a clear shot." It's like,
oh. So when I'm thinking the guy in the White House, what the hell is this guy doing, right? Rolling the dice with American lives. The answer is, it's a man who's smarter than me, and I should just trust.
Yeah.
I should just trust.
The thing is,
he knows he needs a clean shot.
The thing is, it puts it against like it puts it against like all these people are going to die, period, versus like Harrison Ford could be a radical president and go out and cause chaos and get a couple people shot, but ultimately save a good chunk of them. And so that's better than the alternative. But in the end, it's him, and it's one of these things where the president is seen as like you said, like he was clean. He's always clean. He's making these hard choices, and then as soon as not his parents, but as soon as his family is like put in jeopardy, his child's put in jeopardy, of course he's an American man. He's willing to put it on the line for his family. But then not everyone else's family is like, go fuck yourself. Like, it's like,
There it is, the patriarchy, right?
And it's this thing, and I'm sitting here watching this, and it's this, but it's also this idea, and we talked about authority in the Harold and Maude podcast, but it's like,
that's the previous episode. Previous episode of Pop in the Morning.
It's this idea that the president. Somebody says like the presidency is bigger than one man, but they're trying to show that it's not. Like the presidency, Air Force One is this sacred ground. Like how dare you? How dare you even like utter like spit or sneeze on this plane? I like
what you said, that the presidency is bigger than one man, but we want a man who's big enough to to fill it, right? The presidency is supposed to be, the office is supposed to be bigger than the man, but we want a man who is big enough in his proportions, in his judgment, in the clarity of his reasoning, his actions, his decisiveness to protect us. And again, like, what is Donald Trump modeling his entire presidency on? He's being the one man who's big enough to cut through, to drain the swamp. Like, he and his... this is the character that he's modeling his entire... The character of Donald Trump, the president, right? Which I think is distinct in a lot of ways from Donald Trump, you know, the Apprentice guy, Donald Trump, the whatever. It's a character he's inhabiting. He's a performer. Yeah. He takes a heel turn as president, right? But he is the guy, right, who's trying to be big enough to fill the office. Hulk Hogan couldn't have done it better.
Yeah. No. I mean, there was a reason Idiocracy had a wrestler president.
A pro wrestler president.
Yeah. It was, he had this bigger than life figure filling this void. But yeah, but every step that the White House is taking is to protect the president. It's not to protect the people on the plane necessarily. It's to protect the president, and this, not just the president, but this idea that the United States is beyond reproach, beyond violence, beyond being taken by terrorists. Like, God forbid this information got out to the news. God forbid, you know, the idea that the president was killed. God forbid that they, you know, talked to the terrorists. God forbid there was any egg on their face. And so they're trying not... They're not really even trying to protect Harrison Ford. They're trying to protect the idea of Harrison Ford, the president.
Yes, right.
And they're all their behind-the-scenes shenanigans. And it's insane to watch this, because then you're sitting there thinking, like, oh, this is how it works. This is what propaganda is about. This is what the United States... and capitalism is about, about protecting the idea of something, or not even someone, but the idea of something. Because once you become the president, you're no longer someone, you're something. You're just
something. It's the brand.
Yeah, you're the brand.
It's the brand, man.
Yeah, you're the brand.
This doesn't align with our brand. It's a great insight. I love the bit where CNN goes live, and the reporter says, "We're breaking in to announce that we have unconfirmed reports that Air Force One has crashed." You're breaking in to announce you have unconfirmed reports. You're just spreading rumors at
CNN.
This point. Like, what? And so like, you have this thing too where, like, again, I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but it's sowing doubt in the media, right? Like, I don't think CNN is perfect. CNN has a lot of problems, but I find it hard to believe in real life that they would go live they would interrupt programming or interrupt the regular newscast to announce an unconfirmed report that Air Force One has crashed. And of course, we as the viewers of this movie, we know that's not true. Yeah. And so here we have, again, talk about MAGA ground zero, right? We have this bit of fake news injected right in the middle. Yeah. And we've got again the press secretary who walks out in front of the media, all these reporters in the White House press room. And did you catch this bit? It's another bit of comedy. He's going, "I don't know. I'm going to have to check. I don't have any comment. I'm not sure what to say."
Yeah, as far as I know, says, like, as far as I,
why was he up there? Why was he talking? No White House would ever let that man go in front. How I would be panicking, frankly, as an American, if the press secretary was up there going, "Oh, why did they let that man? He has no information."
Old song and dance routine.
You brought up this point. Right. Again, it's them blowing smoke up their ass. It's those politicians. You know who's not a politician? It's Harrison Ford, right? That's the president straight. I want. He's a man of action. He tells it straight. Get off my plane. He says again, against our own self-interest, we're going to go to war for the weak people of the world. That's the only reason, by the way, America would ever go to war, to help someone who needs help. But this point, right, that he goes from being this altruistic, will do whatever it takes to help people in harm's way. I'm going to visit the refugee camp, right, because I'm literally just this man of the people, to all of a sudden, well, you've insulted, first of all, you've compromised Air Force One, and you tried to take a shot at me, and now I take it personal. But two, right, my wife and kid are on that plane. Yeah. And so all of these Americans, right, pilots, Secret Service agents, soldiers, all of these people, even members of their own staff, they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the president, for his life.
And they make...
And he keeps behaving recklessly and throwing their lives away.
Yeah.
No matter what the cost, they're willing to do it for him, right? And they're judging other people's for not wanting to rush into the line of fire for the president, right? On the ground, like the vice president is like, how could you lose faith in him?
It's like,
Madam Vice President, take a step back a second, right? Like, it's not about faith in him or not. It's about the objective facts of this situation.
Yeah. They're like, they literally say...
He is at best himself a hostage.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, he's no longer a president.
The President of the United States is a hostage.
He's making decisions.
This is what the 25th Amendment is for.
Yeah,
his ability to...
He's not making decisions as president. He's making decisions as a father and husband now. He cannot...
Or as a hostage.
As a hostage.
Yes,
yeah.
He's compromised.
But it's insane. This film is literally insane. And there were multiple times where... that I couldn't believe I was watching this, and where the staff stopped and turned to the president and was just like, I just got to say how proud I am that you stayed on this plane, President. I just got to say thank you again. Yeah, We're with you, sir.
My favorite was the pilot saluting him, right?
Yeah, he's like, I'll be on your wing escorting. I'm sorry, sir. It looks like you can't land safely, but I'll be here. Yeah. You did good. You did good, sir. Yeah. I was like,
I started. What? Well, there was also the bit, right, where so another thread in this, right, is the awesomeness of American military technology. The real Air Force One has countermeasures. It has defensive measures that are classified for reasons you can probably imagine. Yeah. You don't want to advertise to foreign governments, to terrorists, what the exact capabilities are, because as soon as you post the specs, they know exactly how to start calculating the workaround. Right? Yeah. But it's highly unlikely that Air Force One has an escape pod. It definitely does not have an off-ramp, a parachute ramp in the back of it. But that aside, right, like the awesomeness of American military technology is also a thread in this movie that I think needs to be reckoned with. You've got these like countermeasures, the chaff, that's the little flakes of
automatic pilots
basically that come out of the back to confuse enemy radar. The autopilot, and you've got the heat-seeking missiles, and you've got what really struck me, right, was these American fighter planes going up against Air Force One, right? And you've got the Soviet MiGs also coming in, but you've got like American technology going against American technology, and in that scenario, like it literally fries itself, right? American technology is so awesome that when that missile is coming at them, right? It can't shoot the plane down because like American technology is awesome, right? And it can't be beaten, right? So it's the perfection, right? The guided missile and the chaff, our weapons are so great that our planes literally can't hurt each other. They're just too awesome to do it, right? And then there's this thing where, like, again, the countermeasures suddenly run out. Sir, out of countermeasures, right? Countermeasures have failed, whatever. And then this American pilot somehow flies his F-16 in between the missile and the plane. I started laughing out loud at that point. It sounds horrible, but I started laughing out loud at the absurdity
I rewound
of that moment.
Because I was confused. I didn't understand what had happened at that moment. Because I was like, did he just dive in front of that missile like the guy dived in front of a bullet?
He did.
Like,
Somehow. He managed to move his plane in that way, right? But just this idea, right, that Air Force One is, it's the ultimate little boy's toy, right? It's got a million little secret Batman Batman from the 1960s show. He's always got his utility belt with all these different things, right? That are gonna. He's got his bat shark repellent on hand, right next to the bat bear repellent, depending on what he runs into the mission. And it's just right there at hand. And Air Force One is a little bit like that. And all these sort of like this American faith in technology, and in particular military technology. Yeah, that it's all gonna be okay because we can think our way through this. The fax system is on a different secure channel that they haven't hacked, and so we can start sending out messages to the outside, right? Well, I just happen to know that there's a bunch of parachutes stashed back here, and the terrorists didn't figure that out. it's Hollywood, and it makes for exciting action, and I get that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the Fast and Furious movies, gross a ton of money on the same concept, that you can make these fantastic toys that in real life are unlikely or too impossible. But here, it's especially pernicious, right? Because when we see a war broadcast on the real CNN, when we see the video released by the Pentagon, right?
Yeah.
We're always seeing the destruction from the view of the plane or from the drone. We get the green infrared night vision footage of the bomb dropping. And we are told over and over again as Americans, whether it's the computer targeted, heat-seeking, guided bomb that can only hit the bad guys and never accidentally hit a school, an orphanage, an aspirin factory, or it's the drone that can, with precision, fly through the city streets and hit only the car carrying the terrorists and not hurt any pedestrians around those guys, right? Or, God forbid, hit the wrong car.
Yeah.
We're told all the time as Americans, right, that we are the good guys. Our technology is so great that the rare civilian that is killed in one of our airstrikes, where our guys are dropping bombs from the safety of 20,000 feet, it's the rare thing that anybody gets hurt. Little kids, the elderly, civilians. Phil, it basically doesn't happen because our technology is so amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
So precise. The wind never blows. The guys from up above never mistake this building for that one. Never goes off target. Never an errant casualty. The U.S. military counts civilian casualties, but they don't release those numbers. They don't acknowledge those things until some Navy pilot or Air Force pilot says, "Hey, I was involved in a cover-up, and I'm coming clean because I can't live with myself."
Yeah.
Or something drops on WikiLeaks. These are the only times that the Pentagon acknowledges these things in real life, because the official story, just like the story in this movie, is, man, our technology is just too awesome. Our intentions are too good, and so we're pure of heart, and we're fighting with the best technology on Earth that makes no mistakes.
It's not just the technology behind it.
And we're seeing it play acted in this movie.
Yeah, and it's not just the technology, and that's great that we're just like powerful and also targeted and can't make mistakes. But behind that is the American ingenuity, the freedom to think outside the box. And you see this multiple times with Harrison Ford's character. You see this when they rescue, it's like, I think I've got a crazy idea. When they rescue the people on the plane with the little zip line.
They divert this random other propeller-driven plane to intercept the jet.
Yeah. And it's mind-boggling to see this, and then you have like these not just Eastern Europeans, but communists who are so rigid and are expecting things to fall in line like a domino, that their mind, every time something happens that's out of their scope, their mind is blown. It's just, it gets like out of they're so out of their heads. It's like, we're losing fuel. What the hell? They're about to land this plane. The president left. What?
Yeah. Can I get a role as an extra? I feel like I could have been a good Russian in this movie.
It was
all
crazy.
of that is it's a salient point, right? All of that is I think, just it comes together.
Yeah, exactly.
In one of my favorite lines in the movie, which is when they think the plane is finally going down. There's no hope. It's before they've got this other troop transport plane or whatever it is that intercepts Air Force One, and they do the crazy zip line stuff, right? And the president's daughter walks over to him, sits down, and kind of pats him on the shoulder as he's looking, maybe for the first time in the movie, defeated.
I know what you're talking
like
about.
He's flying the plane now, right? I think he's flying the plane. And she says to him, I rewound it because I wanted to get the quote exactly right.
Yeah.
They've just been informed that they're losing altitude. One of the engines has just failed, and this is pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like the tail is. Oh yeah, there's just after the salute thing, right? 'Cause the pilot's flying alongside, and they just find out, man, it's just going to be a slow descent into the Black Sea. And his daughter walks over to him and hugs him and says, "It'll be okay. Everything's going to work." That's it. That's the line.
Yeah. And you get this
and again, I understand she's a child.
Yeah.
There's a swell in the music.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a moving thing, and I understand she's a child. I don't mean to ridicule a child. The line delivery is fine, but that sentiment is like the American slogan.
It was
right.
So...
That's how we went into Iraq. I think that was painted on the side of the tanks. It'll be okay. Everything's going to work. Right. It's just sort of like exactly what you're pointing out, that we're gonna go in with God on our side, with technology on our side, with justice in our hearts. The details of the plan don't matter. We're gonna work it out on the way. It makes sense that in this universe, Han Solo is president.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that's exactly how he helped to bring down the Empire.
Oh yeah.
It'll be okay. Everything's going to work. I love you. I know. It's the same kind of like freewheeling, off the cuff sentiment that as long as you've got justice and God on your side, it's going to be okay, right? It's the American way.
Yeah,
it always works out. The good guys win. I mean, how many times have we seen that? Every movie is like that. For a long time, that was the enforced code of the movies.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if our listeners are aware, but like up to the 1960s, when we get the modern MPAA rating system, there was this thing called the Hays Code.
Yeah.
And the Hays Code required that all Hollywood movies not glorify violence or sex, not glorify communism or any other controversial political ideology, and that the good guy always wins.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you watch like one of these 1940s noir films, I'm a huge fan of that genre.
Yeah.
In the end, they still have to make sure that they're showing crime in a bad light.
Crime doesn't pay, yeah.
And that no criminal ever comes out on top. That no matter how ambiguous the morality of your star, the good guy always wins. And we as Americans, we're predisposed to that already. It's part of the national myth. We, the underdogs in the American Revolution, took on the greatest empire in the world. And you know why we won? Because we're just it's just God's way. He just wanted it to happen. And we're just that resourceful that we're able to, like, with chewing gum and a little Scotch tape, MacGyver the thing together. Never mind that in the 1770s, the French showed up and gave us ships and guns and shoes to cover our bare feet. It was mostly the improvisation. I'm pretty sure that's what Martha said to George at Valley Forge. It'll be okay. Everything's going to work. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit acid here, aren't I?
No, it's true. I mean, it's just one of those things where you talk about, everything's going to be fine as long as God's on your side and justice is in your heart. And I don't even know, those things don't even need to be said. It's as long as you are American. Because if you're American,
Stars and Stripes, baby.
That's already included in the package.
These colors don't run. It's right in there. God bless America. It's right on. It's right on the freaking penny.
Are you American? Then you believe in God.
God loves America.
You got justice.
He loves
in your
America
heart.
more than other countries.
Yeah. You're American. You're spreading democracy the good old fashioned way.
just farting it out.
Farting it out, man. God.
Can I read a couple of other user reviews?
Yeah, go
for
it,
film,
man.
Right. One of them, as we kind of wind down this conversation, because I think we've probably made our point.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. This is a 4.5-star review. Solid. This is the entire review. Solid film to watch with your dad and grandfather.
Yes, I
Both,
agree.
I guess at the same time. Some of the reviews are just a little bit more thoughtful. They bring up so many of the points that we're bringing up. One in particular, though he gave it 3.5 stars, he seemed to enjoy the movie a little bit more than we did. But he brings out the point that we made. He says, it goes without saying that President Marshall, by selfishly choosing at every turn to be a hero and remain in a hostage situation to, quote, save his family, by not getting in the escape pod and routinely placing his own life in the hands of terrorists, greatly harms the United States and almost leads to international disaster that could have been easily averted had he just not done any of that.
Yeah.
But I'm reading this review to you because I love the next bit. He says, movies are messages from the future transmitted into the past. Think about that for a second. Movies are messages from the future transmitted into the past. And I think that is full circle on one of the earliest points you made in this discussion, that people always ask, when was America great? Well, some people might say it was always great. It never stopped, but let's make it great again. Others might say it was great in 1997 when Harrison Ford was a real man. Not one of these latte drinking presidents we've got, but a real man.
Yeah.
Who knew how to protect the country and stand up for what was right. I want to give you just one more.
Okay.
This was from a user who gave the film 2.5 stars. Again, this is the entirety of the review. Just had America shoved down my throat.
America! Fuck yeah!
Yeah. World Police. Similar films, right? So just as we zoom back out, we can pan back out to the more global view.
Yeah.
You might think we're being unfair to this movie. If you like this movie, that's all well and fine. But I think you need to watch it with kind of an open eye and look at the tropes that this movie is trotting out. You see it in other movies like White House Down, Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, Executive Decision, The Sum of All Fears. There's just so many movies that are playing on this kind of like you get the collision of Rambo-style action movie,
yeah,
and a White House / government type setting, and you start thinking, or you start being portrayed right that the American government and the proper role for the president is as righteous warrior, solving problems with fists and guns, and let's say it. America is one aspect of America is that we are a warlike people. Mm-hmm. We celebrate it in our films. You can ask any number of countries around the globe what it feels like to have America's bombs fall from the sky on you, to have American boots on the ground, for better or worse. I'm not saying America is all bad, but this is a real part of who we are. And I don't think anything in life is pure black and white, good or evil. And I guess the thing that gets me so worked up about this movie is the way that it does present these kind of things, right? People dying, the American military as something that is purely binary, good versus evil. I think that's a very dangerous thing, even in something that's supposed to be escapist fantasy, because, as I said, we've got users out here wondering, is this what Obama says every time he gets on Air Force One? We're blurring lines for people here.
Yeah.
This is how people think about government. This is how they think about the military. This is how they think about the presidency. And I'm just going to throw it out there that maybe they shouldn't. Maybe that's Commander-in-Chief is one part of what the president does, but he's also the diplomat-in-chief.
Yeah.
He's the person who's supposed to be looking out for the best interests of the American people, but also hopefully not making the world an actively worse place in the process. I would love the kind of movie that can throw a little more nuance into all of this. We don't need to call the president an inherently evil person either.
Yeah.
Could he be somewhere in the middle? Could he be complex in a way that maybe doesn't have such quite pernicious implications on how people walk out of the theater thinking about American military posture, American military prowess, about what makes a man and what makes a good president. This is I don't know. It's the kind of things that leave me biting my nails every 4 years in November.
Yeah. Yeah. It strangely reminds me, I've been rewatching, it's funny, I've been thinking about Copaganda a lot, which is cop propaganda, if you They broke it down a little bit for those viewers out there. But
and can you give an example of what that looks like for someone who might not know? What is propaganda? What is that?
Yeah, that's like any
is it a movie. Is it a genre?
Yeah, it's like the idea of like Lethal Weapon or CSI or any film where cops,
Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order. Any film or TV show where cops and law enforcement is portrayed as inherently good, or if there's a few bad apples, it's literally just a few bad apples they got to weed out, but otherwise they're doing goods. Or even if they're if they're bending the law a little bit, it's for a good reason. Like the ends justify.
The Bill of Rights just kind of gets in the way of things sometimes. Yeah. So let's go punch that guy once or twice while we interrogate him.
So my mom's watching this show called Unforgettable, and this particular episode, somebody had shot this black guy in an alley, and he's like, "Where's the gun? I can't find the gun." And so all these cops are looking for this gun. It's like, "Did you find that gun yet?" But there was never a question of like if there was or was not a gun. It was there was a gun. Right. They just have to find it. And so they spent this whole episode.
It's here somewhere.
Yeah, they spent this whole episode looking for this gun. But I started recently watching Reno 911.
It's like it's Highlights magazine. It's in there somewhere.
Exactly.
You know it's hidden in the picture somewhere.
But I started recently watching Reno 911, and as I was watching it, which is like a parody of Cops, the reality show, but on Comedy Central, as I was watching Reno 911, I was like, oh, this is like not anti-propaganda, portraying them as bad, but it's almost like honest cop show where these people are sometimes doing good, but also, are accepting bribes or, using their their position to get things better for themselves, or they're driving drunk and not getting a ticket because they're cops, but they also quote unquote, they're good people. I mean, at the end of the day, they're like supposed to be good people and it's supposed to be funny, and you're not supposed to hate them. But it's showing like cops using their power for bad, and it felt like the most honest portrayal of cops in that light, because everybody, even if somebody was a good cop, they turn a blind eye to somebody doing something bad.
Well, I think the beauty of that show, or a show like that, is it makes you laugh in the case because it's a comedy,
right? But
you're watching it, and if you're actually really watching it, you're coming away with maybe more questions than answers.
Yeah.
You're sitting there saying, not as did that scene literally happen in real life, but this is complicating my view. This is complicating what I think I know about police.
Exactly. And so I bring that up because I feel like at the moment there is no contrast between like this highly American loving propaganda, like something like Air Force One. There's no flip of it where that shows America as being not so great, but also the citizens at least being kind of nice. But maybe Veep is. I haven't watched Veep, but that's what I'm like. But there's no flip to this kind of propaganda. Has that in Reno 911 and other stuff. People know cops are not inherently good. And I don't think people know that, at least in fictional television, at least really well-made fictional television or movies, that the government is not good. We still get... People will talk about, MAGA people, not MAGA people, leftists will talk about how the government sucks, but we don't get that in Western media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't get...
I understand. Or especially in the form of like a fictionalized film like this.
Right.
You get things like the X-Files, which imply conspiracies, but you don't get a ton of media, and maybe we're overlooking something, but you don't get a lot of...
I try to think.
I think in particular, we should refine this, like the American military, right, and the American presidency as morally ambiguous things that cause you or ask you to question some of your basic assumptions. This movie, as I mentioned before, I feel like is not a great leap. It has better special effects, but it's not a great leap from the propaganda films that we laugh at the wooden acting of the propaganda films from the 50s and 60s. Well, this thing is definitely better production values. I'll give it that. But at its core, it's not challenging anything you think you know. In fact, it's reinforcing some of our worst, some of our most troubling tendencies in terms of, it's okay to question the Senate. It's okay to question legitimacy of judges or justices on the Supreme Court. But man, one thing you do not question is the president when he's in the role of commander-in-chief. Wag the dog is a counterpoint. How about Wag the Dog?
Oh yeah, I think I saw that. No, I don't.
That actually came out.
I saw that.
That came out around this time.
I know of it.
And so that might be. That came out in the same year, and it's about a president staging a. It's a political satire about a president staging a military conflict to distract from his sex scandal. That is causing lots of trouble on the domestic.
False flag, anyone?
That would be a great. It would be a great counterpoint to this.
Our current politics are
along the lines of what you're saying.
Our current politics are all just based on Air Force One and Wag the Dog, is what you're saying.
Movies are messages from the future to the past.
Well, I'm waiting for the future of Barbarella, if that's the case.
I'm holding out for Planet of the Apes. Dr. Zaius, I love you. Phil, if people love Pop of the Morning as much as I love Dr. Zaius, how can they support the show? How can they find out more about it? How can they support the show?
They can support the show by going to cosmicblair.com. They can find out all the information. The best thing they can do is click on the Patreon button and it gets them sent to patreon.com/cosmicblair, where they become a patron for as low as $1 a month. And that helps us a great deal. Become
You're getting good at that.
Patronate, whatever.
Join the Pop of the Morning army and give us your support. Salute the Pop of the Morning flag.
We'll never leave a patron behind. That's our promise.
We will never. We will
unless
we will come and pick you up, and
unless
we'll have
my daughter
a warm
and wife are threatened. Then you're on your own, guys.
and then we'll refuel in the air, but you're still going down with the plane.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, the other thing you can do, if Patreon is not your jam, the best thing you can do in that case is to tell someone you know about this show, a friend, a family member, someone who also would like to spend an hour mocking Air Force One, or perhaps someone who just enjoys pop culture commentary / criticism with a side of warm coffee.
Yeah.
If you know anyone who might fit that kind of bill, please tell them that you like the show. Talk to them about the show. Word of mouth is the way that people find out about this show. It's the way that creative works in general make their way in the world. If you don't have a $50 million advertising budget, so please pass on word of the show. It really helps us out.
Or if you got a
Phil
uncle
Wilder,
or aunt who likes to hate listen, send it their way.
We'll take that too. We'll take that too. Just make sure they smash that like and subscribe button.
Smash it.
Phil, next time on the show, what filmic masterpiece are we going to be meditating upon?
I think we are continuing the 90s future, whatever. I don't know. We're continuing 90s military extravaganza with Independence Day.
Independence Day.
Yes.
I'd say I can't wait, but I'll admit I'm approaching this with a bit of trepidation.
It has been a while since I've seen this one. I actually read the Wikipedia for the sequel because I was too lazy to even bother looking up the trailer. So I just read the sequel for
That's dedication, people. Dedication to the cause.
Yeah.
Well, until next time, I remain Tom.
And I'm Phil, and God bless America.
Get off my plane.